What's up everyone, John Rettinger from Techno Buffalo here, and welcome to part 1 of the Android Superphone Smackdown between the newest member of the Verizon family, the Droid X, and the current king of Sprint Hill, the EVO 4G. So we're going to put these two head to head in a grueling 12-round match. In this particular round, we are going to cover screen, call quality and speaker, battery, text entry, browser speed and operating system. And in part 2, we are going to cover camera quality, both still and video, design, multimedia, and some miscellaneous specs. So stay tuned to both and to see who is the current king of the Android Hill. So we had to limit these tests in some sort of interest for brevity, and for 12 rounds, we have 12 that I think really cover most of the aspects of the phone. So today we are going to go over screen, call quality and speaker, battery, text entry, browser, speed, operating system, the still camera quality, the video camera quality, design, multimedia, and some miscellaneous specs. Let's go ahead and jump right in, and let's start with what you look at with the phone the most, the screen. These are both slate devices, meaning no physical QWERTY keyboards. All of your interaction with the phones are going to be done on the screen. So both sport mammoth 4.3-inch capacitive multi-touch displays. The Droid X has a resolution of 854 by 480. The EVO 4G has a resolution of 800 by 480. So a 54 tall pixel difference there. The 54 pixels make the Droid X have something called FWVGA, which is supposed to be just a little taller resolution and supposed to make scrolling through applications and web pages a bit easier and reduce the amount of scrolling you're going to have to do. Well, is that true? So I've got the same web page queued up on each here. We've got Techno Buffalo. Both of them are loaded at the top, and you can see that really you can tell, and there you can see that the texts are almost exactly the same. You maybe get 1 or 2 lines more on the Droid X than you do on the EVO, but nothing drastic. So from the resolution standpoint, there's not that much to see, but the actual screens that are used, the screen on the Droid X looks a bit brighter even when resolutions and brightness are set at the same, and things just look a bit crisper and clearer. So from an aesthetic standpoint, what's easier on the eye, the Droid X I think has a little bit of a nicer screen. So round 1 is going to go to the Droid X. So next, let's talk about call quality and speakers. Since these are phones and they both have to make calls, the Droid X is running on Verizon's outstanding CDMA network. Call quality was very good. I experienced no drop calls, no white noise on my end or the other end of the phone call. The EVO 4G is running on Sprint's, I think, equally outstanding network. Call quality sounded landline-esque, no white noise, and no drop calls as well. So from a call quality standpoint, assuming you get network service wherever you are, not going to be an issue. Certainly the EVO 4G is 4G capable, but that 4G, if you are in an area where you have service, is right now going to be just for data. So it's not going to affect the voice, but we will talk about the 4G networks later on. So let's talk about the speaker quality. I use speakerphone quite a bit. Is there a difference between the two of these? Well, I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate them for you and let you be the judge. So first, let's talk with the EVO 4G. I'm going to go ahead and open up the speakerphone here. I'm going to move the phone away so all my phone numbers don't pop up. And I'm going to go ahead and just call, let's say, voicemail.
Voicemail. I will help you set up your personal mailbox.
So you can hear the call quality.
First, you will set up a password to
I'll
keep
lift the
your
phone up
mailbox
so you can hear it.
Next, you will record your name in your own voice.
Okay, so pretty good. It's loud. There's a decent amount of noise you can hear. It just sounds pretty good when you're using it. All right, let's go ahead and jump on over now to the Droid X and see how that sounds. And we'll do the sort of the same test here.
To hear your mailbox prompts in English, press 1. Para escuchar las opciones del buzón de mensajes en español, oprima el 2.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and turn that off. So speakerphone to speakerphone, even with the EVO lifted up, and whether or not you're using the included kickstand, we'll talk about in a little bit, the speaker on the Droid X sounds better. It sounds less tinny, less speaker-ish, and the volume, even when both of these are turned up all the way, is just a bit louder. So from a call quality standpoint, both the same. The speakerphone's important to you, which is what we're talking about here. The Droid X is going to be the winner. So the Droid X is once again going to take this round. All right, let's go ahead and jump in and talk about battery life. You got to figure that both of these are going to be pretty big battery hogs to power these large screens with these pretty big and powerful 3G networks. So the battery life on each, they're about, or the battery themselves rather, about 1500 milliamp hours. You're going to get 8 hours of talk time on 3G, obviously, on the Droid X, and about 220 hours of standby. On the EVO 4G, you're going to get 6 hours of talk time on 3G, and about 146 hours of standby. So battery life is actually much improved and a little bit better on the Droid X. You're going to get actually similar battery life to what you would get on the original Droid. So this once again is now trumping the Droid X in that standpoint. So from a battery, very simple way to test, you're going to get a bit more juice out of the Droid X. So next, let's go ahead and talk about text entry. Since, again, we don't have a physical QWERTY keyboard, the only way to input text on these devices is through the screens themselves. Let's go ahead and talk about each. Neither of these, I should mention, are using the stock Android keyboards. Both are using sort of a custom software manufacturing keyboard. So we've got HTC's own Sense keyboard on here, and actually that's hardware manufacturer rather, since HTC and Motorola both made these. And we have Motorola's MotoBlur keyboard here found on the Droid X. So let's go ahead and hop in and take a look. I'm going to go ahead and jump into messages here, and we'll go ahead and start a new message, and I'll show you what the keyboards look like. So pretty standard, you can use either in portrait or landscape. Both are very good. Android does an absolutely awesome job about predictive text and correcting what you're typing, really almost second to none. And in previous comparisons with non-Android devices, I've always talked about the voice to text, although I'm not going to mention that here and really compare it because both phones have it and it works really well. You talk to the phone, it actually will transcribe what you are saying. Let's go ahead and talk about the keyboards. So this is the Sense keyboard. I'm going to go ahead and try typing here in landscape, and we'll see how it works. Tap to compose, and I'll go ahead and type a quick message. Alright, so Winnie the Pooh sounds gross. So we connected it to Minnie the Pooh, but not too bad. We'll go ahead and switch on over, and let's try that one more time. And I will say with both these devices, having screens that are this big does make typing a lot easier. So Connie the Pooh sounds gross. Looks like it doesn't quite want to find Winnie in the dictionary. But the keyboard is pretty accurate and very easy to type on. As you move your fingers over the letters, you can sort of see what they are. Makes it a bit easier to type on. Let's go ahead and jump on over to the Droid X and see what the keyboard looks like here. So go ahead and go into text message, and we'll try a new message. So keyboard, you'll see, looks a bit different. We'll go ahead and try typing the same message here. Oops. So Winnie the Pooh sounds gross. Pretty accurate and worked well. Go ahead and move this over and try it one more time. Alright, so Winnie the Pooh sounds gross. So if we were going to compare keyboard to keyboard, I actually prefer the keyboard in Motorola's offering. I prefer both of these keyboards, rather, to the standard keyboard in Android. However, what Motorola's done just made it a bit easier to use. Now, that's not the only way that you can input text here on the Droid X. You can use something called Swipe, which is pretty big rage now in the Android world. You can put Swipe on the EVO, but it comes standard on a device like the Droid X. Let me show you very quickly what Swipe looks like. So go ahead and jump right down into keyboard. And we'll hop on over to Swipe. And let me show you what this looks like. It's another way to input text without ever having to lift up your finger, which is kind of neat. You can go ahead and just type and move your finger around. It'll sort of pick the words that you want, hit spacebar, and it'll go ahead and type. I haven't used Swipe that much, but when I have used it, it's very quick and very accurate. And it's just another reason that I think the text entry methods on the Droid X is a bit superior. So if we're talking about text entry, keyboard to keyboard, I'd still give it to the Droid X. But the inclusion of Swipe already built in is just sort of icing on the cake. So keyboard to keyboard, the Droid X is once again taking this round. So let's see if the EVO 4G can make a comeback. Let's go ahead and talk about the browsers. If you're interested in picking up a device like the Droid X or the EVO 4G, browser is more than likely going to be a very important factor for you. So let's go ahead and talk about how both of these look. So we'll go ahead and open up the same page. We'll open up technobuffalo.com. Both of these support multi-touch, so pinch to zoom. You can see that they both sort of work the same way, just as fluid, really no difference. If you tap on text, you can sort of zoom in or zoom out depending on what you're doing. So it did the same thing there. Scrolling is very smooth on each. The physics engine works quite well. However, I will say there is one big determining factor right now with both of these devices. The EVO 4G supports flash content, whereas the Droid X does not. Although it will support it sometime by the end of 2010, but comparing these two devices as they exist right now, the addition of flash gives the EVO 4G a bit of an edge. You have the option of whether or not you want to view flash content. On the Droid X, you don't have that choice. Certainly Motorola and Verizon have said it's definitely coming, but right now it is not there. So if we're comparing browser to browser and sort of the way things work, gotta give it to the EVO 4G. Let's go ahead and talk about speed. How do both these things work? They're both using different variants of the 1 gigahertz processor. One is using a Snapdragon, one's using a TI built OMAP processor. But does that really affect how things work? RAM difference? Let's go ahead and jump in and see how speed works on both of these devices. So let's go ahead first and we will kill all running applications. To sort of make this fair, use the same application killer, Task Manager. We'll go ahead and kill all selected apps. And I will do the same thing here on the Droid X. And I'll do it on camera so you know there's no funny business going on. Alright, let's go ahead and first check web browser speed. We are connected to the same Wi-Fi network. And we've got pretty good connection on each. It's showing full bars. Let's go ahead and see if there's a difference loading web pages. So we'll go ahead and open up the browser on both. And we'll try loading, let's say, Techno Buffalo first on both to see if there is any sort of difference. Alright, so all queued up here on the EVO, and we'll do the same thing here. We got it all ready to go. And these are websites that have been loaded on both devices. Obviously, you saw it on here. So this will be a test of sites that you visit on a regular basis. Let's go ahead and hit go on each and see if there is any sort of difference. So we'll hit it there, right there. And we are off. And it looks like the EVO 4G's got a bit of an early edge. The Droid X is showing much more content first, and the Droid X is done, and the EVO 4G is still loading. And still loading. And still loading. Now, in all fairness, I will say that the EVO 4G is still loading flash content, and that may sort of account for why it took a bit longer to load. We'll try some other sites that maybe are less flash intensive. There's a few flash things on here, but just to see sort of what that looked like. Let's go ahead and try another website. Let's go ahead and go to, how about, we'll try Engadget and see if things are a difference there. So we've got it ready to go there. And we'll see if there's any sort of difference with these two as well. So we don't want to search the URL here, we want to jump right to it. Alright, and now we'll go ahead and see if there's any sort of speed difference here and see if it pick up the mobile version or pick up the full version. So we got the mobile version. And so loading the same web page without flash content, the mobile version of each, the EVO was a bit faster. Sort of interestingly enough. And as I found in web pages, certainly when you're viewing flash content, the EVO is going to load things a bit slower. However, when you're viewing sort of the same sort of web page, generally the EVO is just a hair faster, as we saw right here. Nothing that's that noticeable. But if we are going to put these two head to head, there is a bit of a difference when loading non-flash pages. So something to keep in mind. So let's go ahead and talk about some application speed as well. Both these are running Android, so that's sort of the unique opportunity to open up the same programs on each. Generally when I do my smartphone smackdowns, they're two completely different operating systems. So it's hard to sort of compare apples to apples, I hate to say. So let's go ahead and open up sort of similar programs on each. So we'll go ahead and let's try a game, for example, first. And let's try Jules. And again, all these things have running now are the browser. You saw me kill all applications. Let's go ahead and try opening up both of these at the same time, which is a bit more difficult than you'd expect it to be. So loading up at exactly the same time. And they finished at exactly the same time, interestingly enough. So let's go ahead and try something different and see if that's going to affect anything. Really, that was probably within milliseconds of the same time. So hard to say who won that. Let's go ahead and try a few other applications that are similar on each. Let's go ahead and try opening up, let's say, Amazon MP3, something that both of these devices support. So we'll go ahead and try opening that up and see if we can get any sort of speed difference here. Once again, just about identical. And that really sort of goes to show each of these devices speed-wise, it's almost negligible when opening up applications. However, when you are viewing web browsers or web pages, non-flash, the EVO is going to be faster. When you're viewing flash pages, since it's not supported right now, the Droid X is going to be a bit faster. However, we can only assume that when flash to flash is going to be there, we're going to sort of see the same thing, and assume that when browsing, the EVO is going to be a bit faster. So if we have to declare a winner in this round, application speed doesn't really affect anything because they're almost exactly the same. But browser speed, the EVO is going to be just a hair faster. So the EVO 4G is going to take the speed round. Let's go ahead and talk about operating system. Both of these are running Android 2.1, but they're running skins of Android 2.1. One of the cool things about Android, it's open source, so it lets manufacturers put sort of their own flair on the operating system. So if you guys have seen any of my reviews in the past, you'll know that I am a huge fan of HTC Sense, which is what's running on the EVO 4G. It works really well, and they sort of did a nice job of skinning the operating system. So you're going to get this new tray of icons of your applications. You're going to get this new array across the bottom. You get a ton of home pages. You get the new feature where you can sort of zoom in and jump to different web pages. And as you go through and use Calendar and use the applications that are in here, you get sort of some custom tweaks. And generally, Sense UI has sort of beaten up on all the other competition. However, that is before the redesign of Moto Blur. For those of you that may have seen Moto Blur on the Motorola Click or the Backflip, you'll know that it looked like an absolute monstrosity. It looked like a cartoony mess. However, Motorola has completely redone it here for the Droid X, and they may have taken a cue or two from HTC. HTC, in a sense, as I mentioned, sort of adds another layer to it. You get a ton of sort of live widgets and icons. In fact, let me jump back and show you some of those extra widgets you're going to get. So we'll go ahead and go to Widget, and here are the HTC widgets. You see that there are a ton of them that you can do. Certainly, I don't have the time in this video to show you all of them, but you can see that there are a lot here, and they sort of work in the background and always updating content. So let's jump on over to Moto Blur, and Motorola has done a fantastic job here about how they've implemented the operating system in the skin to sort of not be the dominant factor that it once was. You can sort of use it or not use it as much as you like. So you get sort of that same icons across the bottom. You can now jump to the phone. You can jump right to your applications. And they added a lot of widgets as well. I noticed that as I scroll along, you'll see that icons across the bottom let me jump from page to page. Makes it a bit easier to navigate, similar to what I showed you on the Droid, on the EVO 4G, when you can pick the home screens. It's less obtrusive. So if we go to here, you can see some live widgets in action. Let me go ahead and go to a blank page and show you some of the options here that we've got for Motorola. You can see that there are quite a few here as well. Wi-Fi toggle, sticky note, social status, social networking, photo albums, and there's a lot that you can really see and do here. I think a lot of people have probably seen HTC Sense. It's been on a lot of great devices, and you could sort of see here how it's going to work on something like the Droid X. It's less obtrusive. You can add your favorite contacts. Here I've got the photo gallery and the music playing. I've got some applications lined up on the bottom. You've got some tips and trips for your RSS feeds. You can sort of scroll along and sort of see what you can have. So I've got some mail and some calendar and the Google search, and weather and a few others. So ordinarily, HTC Sense kicks the butt of any other skin competition. However, Motorola has done a fantastic job. So this round is most definitely a tie, and that is a tribute to how good both skins are. Really, it's going to come down to personal preference, but you can't go wrong with either. they improve upon stock Android without being obtrusive, I think, which is really the job of the operating system and the skin itself.